Next on Currents News, Hurricane Laura is a killer. The ferocious storm is swirling north and still a huge danger. The FBI is taking charge of the case involving the death of Jacob Blake. Now there's word he had a knife.
The census deadline is right around the corner, but still many people have yet to be counted, especially Haitian Americans. Two groups in Brooklyn and Queens are trying to change that. I'm Emily Drooby, and I'll explain.
New York City's public schools are going low-tech to check if classrooms are safe. Best friends needed now more than ever.
Pets people can't resist during the pandemic. I'm Jessica Easthope with why one shelter says it's harder than ever to walk away from adopting a dog.
The news starts right now. A history-making storm slamming into Texas and Louisiana is a killer. Good evening, I'm Christine Persichetti. Hurricane Laura is only the 10th in recorded history to hit the United States with 150-mile-per-hour winds. The swirling gusts tearing off roofs and knocking down power lines. A 14-year-old girl died when a toppled tree crushed her home, and the danger is nowhere near over. Chris James has the story.
Under the cover of darkness, Hurricane Laura stormed central Louisiana, with wind gusts over 120 miles per hour and heavy rain for more than an hour in Lake Charles, damaging buildings and sending debris flying. In the daylight, the widespread destruction can be seen.
We have hurricane-strength winds still associated with the storm as it moves north, and it's still causing damage, power outage, and so forth. I will tell you that the damage is extensive.
Laura hit the area as a Category 4 storm. Mandatory evacuations were in place for central Louisiana residents, but that didn't stop some from riding out the storm.
One family I talked to at 3:30 this morning, 50 miles from the coast, as they felt their roof being lifted up, said they will never ride out another storm, and hopefully they're safe as well. So we know some people stayed, and we hoped no one lost their life.
FEMA says it will quickly get on the ground to start assessing damage. In the meantime, they have a message for residents.
Keep your family safe, right? If you're in a safe place, don't go outside until you hear the all clear from your local officials. Stay out of the water. Stay away from down power lines. Again, this can be a dangerous part of the storm, even after it passes.
Laura will continue to weaken as it moves inland, but will remain a flood threat through the weekend before exiting the East Coast. I'm Chris James reporting.
Before Hurricane Laura barreled into Louisiana, the men and women who would face the storm gathered together to call on God for help. First responders in Louisiana assembled outside a sheriff's office to pray. They implored the Lord to be at their side when they confronted the storm's impact. Archbishop Jose Gomez, the president of the U.S. Bishops' Conference, is praying for all first responders in harm's way, as well as for the safety and well-being of everyone in the path of the hurricane. The FBI is mobilizing agents to converge on Kenosha, Wisconsin. The Bureau is launching a civil rights investigation into the police shooting of Jacob Blake that has sparked nights of unrest. The Black Kenosha resident was shot 7 times by a white cop on Sunday. Jacob is partially paralyzed in the hospital. This man with his hands in the air and a gun hanging from his neck is believed to be Kyle Rittenhouse. The 17-year-old is accused of shooting 3 Kenosha protesters early Wednesday morning. 2 died. Rittenhouse is an Illinois resident who lives just over the border from Kenosha. He surrendered yesterday. Prosecutors are saying he's part of a vigilante group. Rustin Shesky is being identified as the Kenosha cop who opened fire on Jacob Blake. He and 2 other police officers were responding to a domestic complaint. When Blake entered his SUV, Shesky shot him. Wisconsin's Attorney General is revealing what Blake said was inside the vehicle.
Mr. Blake admitted that he had a knife in his possession, and DCI agents, that's the Division of Criminal Investigation, recovered a knife from the driver's side floorboard of Mr. Blake's vehicle.
Blake's attorney is saying Blake wasn't a threat to cops. The Attorney General is not talking about what role the knife had in the incident. A knife attack on a New York City cop is being labeled a terror ambush. Surveillance video shows police officer Juan Pierre being stabbed in the neck by a Bosnian immigrant living in the U.S. illegally. The attacker tried to stab another officer before stealing the first cop's gun and wounding 2 police officers. The ambush in June happened in Brooklyn. According to court papers filed today, the suspect said his interest in Islamic terrorism made him do it. The new law that bans NYPD cops from using chokeholds is being changed. The revision clarifies that it's illegal for an officer to, quote, recklessly compress a suspect's diaphragm making an arrest. NYPD brass worried that without the change, there would be a reduction in arrests. Mayor Bill de Blasio is saying the spike in shootings led to the change. It's day 4 of the Republican National Convention. President Donald Trump will take the stage tonight to formally accept his party's nomination and make his case for re-election. Last night, Vice President Mike Pence was the headliner.
America needs 4 more years of President Donald Trump.
Vice President Mike Pence speaking at Maryland's Fort McHenry, signaling optimism.
President Donald Trump believes in America and in the goodness of the American people. The boundless potential of every American to live out their dreams in freedom.
In a country of law and order.
We will have law and order on the streets of this country for every American of every race and creed and color.
And while racial unrest persists in cities like Kenosha, Wisconsin, and Portland, Oregon, former NFL player Jack Brewer, who called himself a lifelong Democrat who supports Donald Trump, addressed the issue.
I know what racism looks like. I've seen it firsthand. In America, it has no resemblance to President Trump. And I'm fed up with the way he's portrayed in the media, who refuse to acknowledge what he's actually done for the black community.
He said the country isn't as divided as our politics suggests, that policies must take priority over personalities. One of those policies that Sister Dee Dee Byrne of the Little Workers of the Sacred Hearts of Jesus and Mary spoke about is abortion law.
Donald Trump is the most pro-life president that this nation has ever had, defending life at all stages. His belief in the sanctity of life transcends politics.
We also met a 25-year-old who's running for Congress in North Carolina. Madison Cawthorn spoke about the accident that put him in a wheelchair, but said God protected his mind and his ability to speak for those who feel forgotten. His speech about adversity ended with a memorable moment.
I say to Americans who love our country, young and old, be a radical for freedom. Be a radical for liberty. And be a radical for our republic, for which I stand, one nation under God, with liberty and justice for all.
Aside from the president, who will close out the convention, his daughter Ivanka Trump, HUD Secretary Ben Carson, and former New York City Mayor Rudy Giuliani are also expected to speak tonight. The historic 1963 March on Washington is going to be celebrated tomorrow by the Catholic leader of the nation's capital with a mass of peace and justice. Archbishop Wilton Gregory of the Archdiocese of Washington will be the principal celebrant of the liturgy at 4 p.m. Friday, August 28th. It was on that day, 57 years ago, that Reverend Martin Luther King Jr. delivered his famous I Have a Dream speech in front of the Lincoln Memorial. You can watch the Mass live on the Archdiocese's St. Matthew's Cathedral Facebook page. That's facebook.com/St.Matthews.Cathedral, beginning at 4 p.m. tomorrow. And please join us tomorrow night at 7 p.m. for Currents News special program, Faith and America's Original Sin. The half-hour broadcast explores the Catholic Church's role in ending the evil of racism. It airs tomorrow and throughout the weekend. Go to netny.tv for the complete schedule. The only Native American on federal death row was put to death despite objections from Catholic and Navajo leaders. Lesmond Mitchell was executed for killing a 9-year-old and her grandmother. The U.S. Bishops' Conference is denouncing the execution and 2 more set for next month. In a statement out today, they declare that the church's opposition to the death penalty is clear, and they're insisting the feds halt all executions. The federal census deadline is about a month away, and tonight Catholic groups are scrambling to make sure everyone gets counted, especially immigrants living in Brooklyn and Queens. Currents News' Emily Drooby has the story from Manhattan.
Hello.
A van with a plan, a very important one.
Everything is based on the census.
And getting that word out to the Haitian community is crucial so that their participation in being counted is increased.
It is very important to us that everybody is counted because we are one New Yorker, we are one family.
Perez Laxama runs Life of Hope Center. They're hard at work overcoming reluctance to be counted, especially among immigrants in Brooklyn and Queens. Getting special attention, the Haitian community. In the last census 10 years ago, only 30% were counted. Now the number is over 50%. Laxama says his group has contacted more than 2,000 people.
Because they have fear, and then the COVID make it worse now.
Fears immigration agents could get a hold of the information, historically rooted distrust for the government, pandemic quarantining, and fears over the government and landlords knowing how many people are living in one home have all prevented people from signing up for the census. The second group working on this, Haitian Americans United for Progress, says it's also a lack of understanding, which is what these groups are trying to fix by speaking one-on-one.
Once you break that barrier, once you're able to connect with people as fellow immigrants, the barrier just comes down.
Another issue, the census deadline, which was moved up to September 30th, a month earlier than originally announced. Census numbers determine funding for local schools, hospitals, and roads. It also helps businesses decide where to build factories, offices, and stores, and even shows developers where to build and what neighborhoods to fix up. The two groups will continue their outreach until the deadline. Anyone who has yet to be counted can log on to 2020census.gov. If you don't have internet access, you can call at 844-330-2020, or for the Haitian Creole option, 844-477-2020. In Manhattan, Emily Drooby, Currents News.
The man convicted of massacring Muslims in New Zealand mosques is going to prison for the rest of his life. Brenton Tarrant's sentence is a historic first in the country. He's not eligible for parole. The terrorist slaughtered 51 worshippers when he attacked 2 mosques in Christchurch last year. He had nothing to say at his sentencing today. There's a lot more news headed your way. It seems like an unusual technique, but it's being used to make sure kids in public schools are safe when they head back to class. We'll show you. Plus, Catholic schools getting a scrub down, how the Brooklyn Diocese is getting ready to welcome back students. And we're headed to prison, virtually. It's an ancient prison in Italy that is special to Catholics. We'll explain in our series, Roaming the Eternal City. Stay with us.
Now you can help us put your faith in the news. The next time you capture a newsworthy event, send us your pictures or video. It's easy. Go to netny.tv/send us, and you may see your submission on Currents News.
New York City's public schools are going decidedly low-tech to check the safety of classrooms. DOE workers have been spotted using toilet paper attached to the end of sticks to check out airflow. They're supposed to be monitoring conditions that could lead to the spread of the coronavirus. Mayor Bill de Blasio is saying he sees nothing wrong with the method and the public schools are following CDC guidelines. At the same time, the Diocese of Brooklyn schools are undergoing a complete scrub down. It's a 3-step process: cleaning, sanitizing, disinfecting, with just one goal: keeping schools safe. Currents News' Emily Drooby has an exclusive look into purifying procedures underway in the Diocese of Brooklyn.
From doorknobs to desks, this professional cleaning team has an important goal:
to clean and sanitize every single part of the building. From the cafeteria to the students' classrooms to the main offices to the maintenance.
Performing a deep clean at SALVE REGINA Catholic Academy in East New York, Brooklyn, scrubbing by hand and using this fogger to hit the unreachable spots. This sanitizing is happening at all schools across the Diocese of Brooklyn. The cost is high, over $130,000. The bills are being paid by the superintendent's office. The work ensures clean schools will be ready to welcome kids back to class. Each school is tailoring operations to their unique needs. At SALVE REGINA, that includes buying over $1,000 of equipment, including a backpack fogger.
Every evening, we will be able to reinforce the work that was done by this professional cleaning company. My utmost concern is the safety of the students, is the safety of our staff and the teachers.
Like Salve, Regina, most schools are opening for in-class teaching. That's one of 3 plans that get underway in September. Plan A, 100% in-person instruction. Plan B, a hybrid of in-person and at-home learning. And Plan C, 100% distance learning.
Isolation room is the last door on this side.
Our Lady of Trust Catholic Academy in Canarsie is preparing for full-time classroom teaching.
We have a custodian on staff during the day. He will clean the bathrooms, wipe them down 3 times a day. 3 times a day they'll wipe down the hand railings.
Principal Mariel Wilkinson says parents will soon get a tour of the school's safety measures over Zoom. She also points out teachers will be wearing clear masks so kids can see their faces.
Especially for like phonics and things like that, you know, they can see. And they can also see that they're smiling underneath. They're not saying, look, I'm smiling under this mask. They can actually see that.
St. Joseph the Worker Catholic Academy's deep cleaning has the added challenge of reaching high ceilings. The Windsor Terrace School is also taking steps to meet the needs of their youngest students.
In pre-K, kindergarten, they use a lot of Play-Doh. Play-Doh is really important for fine motor skills. It's really important for dexterity. We can't sanitize Play-Doh. And so alternatively, we bought lots of Play-Doh and everyone will get their own Play-Doh in Ziploc bags.
The student population at the academy is growing this year, and with the need to use more classrooms so all kids keep a safe distance, 7 new faculty are coming on board. Schools will be back in session with these new innovative methods in place starting September 9th. All are ready to switch to plans B or C if COVID cases arise. In Windsor Terrace, Brooklyn, Emily Drooby, Currents News.
The summer is winding down and Americans are still unable to travel to one of Europe's most popular destinations, Italy. So we're continuing our virtual series, Roaming the Eternal City. This week, our Vatican reporter Melissa BUTZ takes us to an ancient Roman prison with a special connection to the very foundation of the Catholic faith.
These words written behind me, the MAMERTINE prison of the Holy Apostles Peter and Paul, announce what lies behind these iron gates. In fact, it is here that the 2 saints were arrested and held while evangelizing in the Eternal City. In the 7th century BC, MAMERTINE prison was the main jail in Rome, located in front of the city on Capitoline Hill. Today, its memory is sacred, especially these 2 ancient jail cells built right on top of each other. Carcer is the upper area where Roman guards kept watch over the prisoners below. Expert Carlo Munn says it was reserved for the worst enemies of Rome. Criminals were thrown down this hole into the dungeon before stairs were built to connect the 2 levels. In 67 AD, Peter and Paul were among those arrested. Statues and relics of the saints recall their presence, along with other markings on the wall.
At the beginning of the stairs, we see a place which is a memory of the passage of Peter. Just bringing down him to the jail, he hit it with his head, the marble, and there was a memory here hidden made for memory of this place.
But it's Tullianum, the cell below, where Peter and Paul were imprisoned during Nero's persecutions of Christians. This small area held 49 people while the apostles were here and is said to be the site of a miracle.
What's important for Christians in this water, which sprang out for the intervention of Peter and Paul, 47 people were baptized here. 2 of them were really the jailers. They were also martyred again also after their conversion.
While water flowed centuries before, it had dried up in the previous 900 years. That's why at the beginning of the 4th century, the cell was redesigned as a place of worship. This sacred transformation allowed it to be preserved instead of destroyed like other monuments. An altar was installed, the water source protected, and the column which bound Peter and Paul was guarded. They all have since been removed and can now be found in the museum just above the cement cells. This leaves the prison in its original condition, as when the apostles were awaiting their death nearly 2,000 years ago. This prison, while Saints Peter and Paul were inside, actually resembled a sewage tank, since prisoners were often forgotten and starved, since this was the final step before their execution. However, we know that for Saint Peter, he was crucified upside down here in Rome, while Saint Paul was beheaded, since he could not be crucified as a Roman citizen. In Rome, Melissa BUTZ, Currents News.
The Church of St. Joseph of the Carpenters now stands atop the Mamertine, its facade raised in the 1930s to allow access to the ancient prison below. Make sure to join us next week as we wrap up our virtual tour of the Eternal City with an insider's look at the heavenly angels of Castel Sant'Angelo. Don't miss it. Still to come on Currents News, pandemic pets. It's been all the rage, why everyone seemed to need man's best friend to get through. When we come back. Do you have a story idea or want to share a tip? Email us at newstips@desalesmedia.org or call our 24-hour number 718-517-3122. We'll be right back. There just may be some silver linings to the coronavirus crisis. More time with friends, the furry ones. Pet adoptions are surging as Americans continue to stay inside. Currents News' Jessica Easthope speaks with one woman who's connecting the soon-to-be forever friends in Glendale, Queens.
How could you resist this face? Well, right now, not many people can. Here at Bobby and the Strays in Glendale, cats and dogs are on the move, from the shelter into the loving arms of their new owners.
There is a lot of people that want to adopt and rescue, and they're asking for older animals, which is really a good thing. Tiffany.
Bobby Giordano, the owner of the shelter, says since the pandemic began, adoptions have spiked. From March to August of 2019, 207 animals were adopted. In that same time this year, there have been 233 adoptions.
Isn't he just adorable?
As for the reason for the spike, Bobby has a few theories about why people can't walk away from these animals.
People are lonely. Their outside life isn't what it used to be, and they want companions.
For Bobby, she says what's even more important than an increase in adoptions is a decrease in people returning younger dogs like Juno. From March to August of last year, 20 animals that were adopted from Bobby and the Strays were returned to the shelter. This year, that number was cut in half. Bobby and her staff say taking care of the animals is their calling, and the compassion they feel toward them is tied to their faith.
I do believe in God. I believe that He sent these animals here to me.
I feel that God gives me the energy, He gives me the strength. I may not be able to save the world, but I'm going to try.
Though Bobby and the Strays has saved many lives over the years, the staff says the dogs save them right back by giving them a purpose.
Good boy.
That was the case with Buddy.
A man called me up and asked me to take a dog he found in the park. Then when he came here, he told me his wife had him in the basement and he was afraid to get arrested, and I had to take him.
Bobby says the pandemic is helping people understand what her animals taught her long ago.
You need them more than they need you.
In Glendale, Jessica Easthope, Currents News.
And that is Currents News. Please join us tomorrow night at 7 p.m. for a Currents News special program, Faith and America's Original Sin. The half-hour broadcast explores the Catholic Church's role in ending the evil of racism. It airs tomorrow and throughout the weekend. Go to netny.tv for the complete schedule. I'm Christine Persichetti. Thank you for joining us because we are putting your faith in the news. Hope to see you again next time.